Many families believe that once a DNR order is signed, the decision is permanent, that once the papers are signed, there's no going back. And that belief can make the entire conversation feels terrifying because families start thinking, what if we make the wrong decision? What if something changes tomorrow? What if they improve? What if we sign this too soon? When people feel that kind of pressure, they often freeze. They delay the conversation. They avoid the form, or they agree outwardly, but inside they still feel deeply unsettled because it can feel like the decision has to be perfect. And when someone you love is seriously ill, perfection feels impossible. But this is something many families are not told clearly enough. A DNR order is not always a one time, irreversible decision. It can be revisited. Care plans change as situations change. That is true throughout medicine. If a patient improves, the medical team reevaluates. If a patient becomes sicker, the medical team reevaluates. DNR decisions are part of the same process. They are meant to reflect the patient's condition, goals, and wishes in the moment the decision is being made. That matters because families often imagine the DNR conversation as a kind of a final door closing. But in reality, medical decision making during serious illness is much more fluid than families realize. I've sat with families who were afraid to agree to a DNR order because they believed once they said yes, they would never be able to revisit it. And underneath that fear was something deeper. They were not just afraid of the form, they were afraid of being trapped in regret. They were afraid that if anything changes, they would have made the decision too early. They were afraid of living with the feeling that they had to close off a possibility. And when families are carrying that fear, even hearing that the decision can be revisited can bring a visible sense of relief. Sometimes you can almost see it in their bodies. Their shoulder drop, the breathing changes. Because now the conversation no longer feels like decide perfectly right now. Instead, it becomes let's make the best decision we can with what we understand today. That is a very different emotional experience. And it is a much more honest way to think about serious illness decision because many of these conversations do not unfold in a single moment. They unfold over time, over repeated decisions, over changes in the body, over growing clarity. Sometimes a family begins the hospital stay feeling very certain they want every possible intervention. Then the situation changes. The prognosis becomes clearer. The body continues to struggle. The treatment no longer produces the recovery everyone had hoped for. And family begins seeing the situation differently. In those moments, the question is not, what did we say at the very beginning? The question becomes, what reflects the patient's situation and wishes now? This is why these decisions are meant to be revisited when needed. Not because families are doing something wrong, but because serious illness unfolds in real time. And understanding often unfolds in real time too. I remember sitting with a family once who were very hesitant about a DNR discussion because they kept saying, what if something changes? That question carried so much fear. And what they really needed in that moment was not just a medical explanation. They needed permission to understand that care decision can evolve as the situation becomes clearer. Once they heard that the care plan could be revisited if the circumstances changed, the conversation often softened, not because the decision became easy, but because it no longer felt like a trap. That distinction matters. These decisions are not meant to corner families. They are meant to help align the medical plan with the patient's value and the reality the body is showing. And when families understand that a DNR order can be rediscussed, it often reduces the panic around the conversation because now they are no longer trying to predict every future possibility perfectly. They are simply trying to make the most honest decision they can for the person they love based on what is true right now. That is a much more steadier place to decide from. These conversations can feel overwhelming, especially when they happen in the middle of a crisis. So I'm curious, before hearing this, did you believe that a DNR order was permanent? Please leave me a comment below. I would love to hear from you. And if you're navigating serious illness decisions for someone you love, you may also find other videos on this channel helpful. If you need help organizing your thoughts before medical conversations, the free caregiver decision guide is linked in the description below. Because when decisions feel heavy, having a clearer way to think through them can make a difficult moment a little easier to navigate.